Gentlemen, welcome back to Ep003 of the Framework Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Morales. And today's episode, it's quite dear to me because I've learned a lot through this. And it's on the topic of experiences and how you gaining experience builds your confidence. So we're going to go ahead and get right into this. And let me share a little story with you. And again, or an experience. Because the other day, it happened to me the other day, I was rucking and in my travels, I found a park. I discovered a park I didn't even know existed. Um, so I go into this park and it's a beautiful park, like laid out nicely, it's well maintained, almost picturesque. So as I'm walking, I see that there's a stream running through the middle of this park. And along the stream, the banks of the stream, there's a slew of ducks, which was cool. You know, being as cold as it is outside over here, uh, seeing the ducks there was kind of cool. It made it more pleasant to be walking around in that park. But at any rate, as I'm going down alongside the stream, I'm looking over, and the stream's running. It's not stagnant water, and I see a group of like 6 ducks, and 3 of them are paddling, like they're in the water. They're paddling, and they're paddling upstream, but they're not going anywhere. They're just there paddling. Now, some ducks, I think they do that, but for these ducks, they were like paddling with a purpose, and they weren't going anywhere. Now, there was just slightly forward of them, or ahead of them, there was a group of 2 ducks, and they were making slow progress going upstream, but they were, you could tell they were paddling hard and they were exerting themselves. And just to the right of them, actually, no, to the left, up ahead, there's a duck walking on the riverbank. And I look further ahead and there's a person feeding the ducks. So they were all trying to get to this food. And that made me think that what was the difference between these 3 groups of ducks? And like the first group, they weren't going anywhere. The second group was making mediocre progress. And that one duck was on the riverbank. Obviously, he's going to get to the food before all the rest. And I started thinking that it had to do with experience. See, that one duck had already been probably fed multiple times, if not hundreds of times. And he knew, let me get out of this water, walk along this bank, and go get that food. And he was going to get there, no doubt, before everyone else. The 2 ducks probably been there a couple times, and they knew to paddle faster to get upstream, but they were making slow progress. So by the time they got to the food, they're probably too tired to eat. And the last group, the first group I mentioned, the 3 ducks, they weren't going anywhere. So that brings to mind the importance of experience. And instantly, when I saw this happen, it clicked. Because when I was growing up, I like I said, I grew up poor. We lived in the ghetto. We didn't have no experiences. The only experience we had was the occasional, red and blue berries going around the neighborhood, or the fights that broke out. But I say this not to speak ill of my mother. She was a great woman, and she did the best she could to give us a better life than she had, because she had a tough one. And in no way am I trying to overshadow that with the life that I had. But the life that we had was nowhere in comparison to the life that I'm building now to give to my family. And that's a story for another time. But I wanted to talk about the importance of gaining these experiences, because as you grow up, and this is to those young bucks, you young men, and young men, I don't mean 12, 13, 14. I mean anywhere from your mid-teens to your mid-30s. You're still a young man. I'm 47 and I still don't think I'm old. My body might tell me otherwise, but I still think I'm just 47. Like, and that doesn't make any sense. When you get to 47, you'll know what I'm talking about. But living in Lawrence, you get probably just living in poverty. You get sucked into this vacuum that your radius is probably this big, maybe a little bit bigger than this microphone. So all you see is what's constantly in front of you. There's no way to remove yourself and have a better picture or a better vision. And I know I spoke a little bit about it last week, but this has nothing to do with that. This podcast today about gaining the experiences has to do with how that will create or build confidence in you, because a lot of us growing up poor, growing up in poverty, growing up with a poor mindset, although we're broke, we all we see is what we have. And I was in the mix. All I saw was what I had. Surrounded with an area that there was drug dealers, there were prostitutes, there were gangs, there was violence, there was dropouts, there were two, myself included, people that just wanted to get out. I didn't want any part of that. Thankfully, my mom was strong enough that she kept me away from affiliating with any gang. Now, those that have, do you. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to criticize. I'm not here to speak ill of anybody. I'm here to tell you about my experience and how having that experience helped me to where I'm at today. And hopefully this translates to give you some motivation or a different viewpoint to where you can do the same for yourself. Now, so like I said, I grew up in Lawrence, and it was just the immediate. All I saw was what was in front of me. Every day was a different type of trouble. Not me, but just in general. Every day was another challenge. And growing up in Massachusetts in the 80s, like early 80s to it started fading pretty good early 90s, but it was rough. Not only because the life that we lived, but because there was still prejudice. Lawrence was predominantly a a beautiful factory town. Like, these factories have some history. So I faced a little backlash of some prejudice, but again, I'm not here to cry about it. That was then. This is what, 40 something years ago, 40 years ago. So it doesn't matter. But just to create a picture of what I was facing, many of you aren't far off. Some of you have it worse. So I'm hoping that today, as we talk about how to gain these experiences and the importance of gaining these experiences, how they can help you. So with that in mind, as I grew up and I was in my teens and I got my driver's license, I was always involved in some extracurricular activity. It didn't matter whether it was football, track, indoor track, outdoor track, basketball, martial arts, boxing. I always had something to do before and after school. Now, that helped me. And, my mother also promoted this and supported it because it helped me to keep my mind or be tempted to that way of life. And I give her all the credit in the world. She did all she could to make sure that we didn't live the life that she lived. And what I started doing, I didn't want to live my life stuck to what I had. And then let's be honest, many of you don't. Some of you probably gave up and just feel that way, but you can change. Anybody can change. There's no way with today's technology and the access that we have that you're not able to put 20% of your energy into changing and it won't happen. So please don't fill the comments with, oh, but you don't know my struggle or you don't know this. I don't care. We all been through it, many of us. I don't want to say, oh, some of us are more privileged their life than others, good for you. You got your own set of problems. This is from the perspective of that young man that's finishing high school. Let's say, yeah, let's paint that picture. A young man finishing high school, probably junior, senior year in high school. He's getting ready to face the world, and I'm making air quotes, and face the world, and to get a job and start living, start producing. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of fears. There's a lot of uncertainties. There's a lot of emotions that are going through you, the young man's mind. And many of us don't know how to deal with them because all we see is the immediate, right? I have cousins that didn't do anything with their lives. I have cousins that were raised like I was and made something of themselves. I have kin, my brother and sister, they're grown up, they have families, they're doing their own thing. The situation that I'm talking about affects people differently. However, a common, I want to say, a common void that can greatly help all of us is gaining experiences. And I'm not saying pack up a van and head out and live life out of your van and not get a job and just vlog. Like, that's not going to last. You're not building a strong foundation if you think that you're gonna just travel the world and just live the rest of your life that way. That is not true. It's fun for a little bit, but then you're gonna have to face reality anyway. So why not start building that now? So for you that are just getting out of high school, finishing up soon, and you're not sure what to do, I implore you, start gaining experiences. Push yourself just a little bit outside of that comfort zone and start seeing a bigger picture. Start seeing what's beyond the 4 blocks in your hood. Start seeing what's beyond the 6 rows, of the trailer park. Start seeing what's beyond that one country road and single stoplight that you have in your town. See, we all face different challenges, but this is a core foundational, I want to say quality, but it's not a quality. Gaining experience has so many benefits that even the good and the bad will teach us something. So what I did, I'm just going to tell you what I did, and hopefully you can come across your own experiences and build off that. So I got my license, and what I used to do was, and every weekend, I would take a trip from Lawrence to Boston. And in Boston, there was this building called the Prudential Building. And the top of the Prudential Building, or tower, however you want to call it, they had like a skyscape where you can get up there and view the entire city. You could put the quarter in and rent those, timed binoculars. And you could spend some time up there and see the city. Now, I did that because Boston from Lawrence, it took maybe 45 minutes, but it got me away from my city. It got me away from my situation. It got me away and allowed my mind to start opening up to other possibilities. And that was, back then I had no idea. I just did it to get away. And I would go by myself. This wasn't where I took my friends or anybody. I went by myself on purpose because it helped me overcome the fear of leaving the town, right? Because the fear of the unknown, it doesn't matter if you're going 10 miles to the next town over. Some people face that. So it allowed me to not have that, to overcome it. Also allowed me to start exercising a little bit of courage and building that quality in me to try new things. And it was 2 to 3 times a month I would take this trip on the weekends. And one day, Saturday or Sunday, I would just go And sometimes Fridays after school, I didn't have a set schedule, but I would make sure that 2 to 3 times a month I would take that journey. And it was so influential for me, for lack of better words. Like, it helped me in so many ways because I was able to allow myself to take in more sights and not just look at the city. I meant like be out of my environment and truly have the opportunity to have that inner dialogue, to talk to myself and express and start building upon my vision, what I wanted. And what was for sure is that I did not want to grow up the rest of my life and live in Lawrence. I didn't. I wanted to go and do something else. And I didn't know what it was yet, but I had a good job, right? I went to a vocational high school, so my trade was in electronics. Those that don't know what vocational high school is, it's a school that teaches you a trade, and we would spend a week in academics, math, science, social studies, whatever, and then we spend a week in the shop, which taught you the trade that you were for, and it was multiple trades. It ran the gamut. So take your pick. I was in electronics, so I had a good job. And from high school at 16, 17 years old, I was making 20 some dollars an hour. And back then, yeah, there were child labor laws then, but they didn't matter. I was working 50, 60 hours a week. But, well, so it wasn't that I didn't have a job. It wasn't that I didn't have that quote unquote security coming out of school, because the company that I worked with or worked for, they offered me a job as soon as I graduated. I was soldering parts, so that was my gig, and I loved it. To this day, I still enjoy it. But that's to say that it wasn't like I didn't have anything set out for me. Like, I had a good paying job. I could have managed. I could have built my life in Lawrence. I just didn't want to, because the environment that I was in was not conducive to the vision that I had created. And that vision came aboard when I was taking my trips to Boston. And I'm not saying go visit Boston. Go figure out what your Boston is. Mine was, because it was there 45 minutes away. I can climb that building, get up there. And most of the times it was empty, very few people. And I can just start to picture and allow my mindset to start developing outside of the pressures that I was facing every day. And many of you face this pressure, and most might not even realize it, because it is what it is. It's what we live in. So myself growing up, I didn't see it that way. I didn't see all the pressures of being broke, or the pressures of, living in a violent city, or the pressures of my parents having that poverty mindset, the pressures of my extended family pulling this way, or this side pulling that way, and we don't recognize it because that's our daily. So to us, it was just life. However, and I say this with a caution, because some of you might not be ready. When you decide to step out of that environment, it is amazing. Amazing. It is amazing, the things that you'll get to experience, the things that just develop within yourself. They start to sprout. And I was at least keen enough or aware enough to, when that started, I didn't push it away because, oh, well, this is what my homies do, or this is what, we do. This is our habit, or this is our routine. I didn't care for any of that, because one thing that having parents that were drug dealers is that we moved a lot. Because if the block got hot, we had to move somewhere else and let it cool down, and then move somewhere else, and then move somewhere else. We moved so much that I went through 5 different high schools in my first year and a half. So that should tell you a little bit about it. Now, I could see it as a victim. Oh, I didn't have any, childhood friends I kept, and start boo-hooing that way. Or I could see it the way that I did was, hey, we got to pick up and go, or we got to try something new, or we got to go way over there because that looks interesting, or whatever. Like, I wasn't afraid to just get up and go. So that was part of what helped me to start traveling. So I started going to Boston, right? A few months, went there. I loved it. Like I said, it just pulled me away from the environment. Then I started going to Salisbury Beach, another half an hour, 45 minutes. And I would go there with one of my boys because back in that day, I was taking capoeira, and we would take our bedding bows. If you don't know what it is, look at Google it. Bedding bow with the martial arts called capoeira. It's a Brazilian martial arts. And I wasn't in it long, but I did love that instrument. So we built our own during the classes and training, and we used to go out and like at sunrise because I used to bounce at a club in Salisbury Beach. That's the that's how I identified that beach. I discovered that beach through a friend that offered me a bouncing gig. I was 16, bouncing at a club, and so all sorts of illegal stuff just by my age being there. But after the club, it would close down 3, 4. Me and my boy used to hang out, and we used to play music on our bedding bows. And he had a different tone than I did when the sun till the sun came up, and watch the sunrise, and experience that. You can't experience a sunrise over the horizon of waves and the beach and the ocean if you're stuck in a concrete jungle. Get out. Like, go experience something nice. I'm not saying go do something wild or act a fool. No. Build yourself up, because regardless of where you're at now, you're going to have the responsibilities of manhood thrusted upon you, because that's what we are. We're men. We grew up to be men. Now, some of us at 47, the age that I am, if you're still in the basement playing video games and, depending on your parents, bruh, now I get it. We all go through periods of seasons of hardship, and you might need that helping hand. Good. I'm glad that it's there for you. It helps you out. But if you are selectively staying there because it's easy for you, I'm not sorry to say, but you cannot consider yourself a man. And a man in the true sense of the word, that you're able to provide, you're able to protect, you're able to build a family, lead it, and be that person that they depend on. That, to me, is the essence of what a man is. And also a servant. Like, we don't just rah take over stuff and control everything. No, we serve those whom we love, and we help those our fellow man. So it's not like you have this just, you have your blinders on and just my family and this is it. No, your shoulders are wide for a purpose. Start carrying some weight. So going out, back to the subject at hand, going out to Boston helped remove me from that environment. Now, I have my notes here. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. And many of us that grow up a single parent, or maybe you have both parents. I didn't have both parents. I had like 4 or 5 stepfathers. And none of them were abusive towards me, but a couple of them were abusive towards my mom. And we'll cover that some other. I'm sure it'll come up in one of the podcasts. However, like, there wasn't a permanent father figure in my life. My older brother, he wasn't a father figure or someone I looked up to, because as soon as he could, he picked up and left to live his life. Good on him. Again, I'm not here to cry about what happened. That was it. It is what it was. It is what it is. It was what it was. We're here now, right? I'm thinking back, and I'm glad I had the wherewithal to learn from these experiences, because it's helped me today. And I'm almost begging you, young bucks out there, learn from these experiences. Don't carry that hate, that anger, Oh, I grew up poor, I'm tough, I'm a gangster. There's no need for that. Make something of yourself. And if you're in the older stages, mid 30s and up, and you have a family and you're still looking back or you're still acting like you're 21, 20, 19, stop. Especially if you're married or have a family. They need you. You need you. Don't try to cover yourself or put that mask on. Well, this is how I grew up and this and that. Bro, that carries a zero weight when it has to do with the responsibility that you have before you. Once you've grown up and you've matured, you become a man, you can easily dispel that stuff. Just push it aside. There's a couple of things you might struggle with, but it's not to the point to break up your family. It's not to the point to cause a failed marriage. And if you need help on a daily, pick up the Bible. Read something positive. Fill your mind with something positive. I didn't have any of this back then. And I made it out. And I'm nobody special. We're sitting here and you're taking in this information from me because it's just what I lived. It wasn't like I came up with this stuff. I was like, ooh, I got a solution for this, and that. No, I was on the same boat, bro. Grab a paddle. Let's start rowing. Keep moving forward. The stuff that's happened to you in the past, leave it back there because it's going to create bigger problems in the future. Don't hang on to that stuff. Leave it back there. But I digress. Back to the ducks. So that duck that was walking obviously had the most experience, which gave him the confidence to step out of the stream, right? Remove himself from the environment that he was born and probably raised in to go get that meal. So how can you apply it in your life? What can you do today that will remove you from a part of that environment? Maybe you don't drive. Get on the train, get on a bus. If you're old enough, you have a job and it's the weekend, look up a hotel the next city over, 2 cities over, the next state, I don't care. Get on a Greyhound bus if they're still out there. Take that trip. Spend a day by yourself. So I'll paint an even better picture for you. Let's say you live in Lawrence, like I did, and I wanted to get out of my environment, but I don't drive. Many people in the city don't drive. If I wanted to get out of my environment, I'm looking to Vermont, Maine, maybe Ohio, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Rhode Island's nice, right? But I'm looking for different states around me, maybe 2 states, Virginia. Like if I'm in Massachusetts, I'm trying to reach out, look out. So go buy a $30, $40 ticket, take the bus ride, schedule, reserve your hotel and a nice one. Man, you have to, don't go to a cheap motel if you're gonna experience something and to help you, broaden your gaze and remove you from the environment to allow yourself to just take it in and see that there's something more out there. Spend some money. Get a hotel, that costs you a couple $100 a night and just enjoy it. I mean, get a hotel that $180 a night with a free breakfast. And go do that. Experience that because that alone is gonna do so much for you in that way because you're gonna face the fear of leaving your comfort zone, which is your immediate environment. You're gonna face the fear of something new. You're gonna face the fear of anxiety. You don't know what to expect when you get over there. You're gonna face the nervousness of flying the coop per se, which is, taking that leap. That's the only way to grow because if the only thing that you see is your immediate environment, is just what is in front of you or what you grew up in, you're never going to grow. You're never going to allow yourself to expand. You're never going to allow yourself to become a better human. And if that's what you want, cool. You do that. Stay where you're at. I'm not here to get on your case for that or judge you. That's not my place. If you're happy where you're at, great. But if you're looking for something more, if you want something that, man, because I had that burning feeling that I needed to get out. And the only way to do that is having these experiences, to pushing myself to go and do something. And I did it. And the last time I was in Lawrence, probably a decade ago, and I saw my brother. I gave him a big hug because I was so happy to see him. Because prior to that, the last time I saw him before that was at my mother's funeral, and I didn't even recognize him. That's how far we've grown apart. But it was nice to see him, and he got to meet my kids, which he never met, and he got to meet my wife, which he had never met, and it was a nice experience. And I would do the same with anyone in my family that I see. There's no love lost. So please, once you start to building yourself out and building your foundation to become that better person, don't start to hate those before you. Or what I'm trying to say is, there's no one in my family, immediate or extended, that I don't like or wouldn't show love to if I would see them on the street. If I go to an amusement park and see them and they see me, I'd embrace them because I haven't seen them in so long. So you can't, I'm not trying to tell you to, okay, you gotta leave this for that, right? There's room for both. And if you allow yourself to widen out, you'll see that there's room for both. I don't hate anyone in my family. I don't despise anyone in my family. We just grew apart because I chose different paths. I finished high school. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I messed that up. Ignorance. We'll tell you some other time. Got out of that. Then I went to the military. I joined the Navy. Did my stint there. Got married. Now I'm here. And obviously, there's time gaps in between there. But it would be a 2-day podcast, so I start telling you all those stories. I don't want to keep this. I didn't want to keep this long, but I appreciate you staying with me. However, my main point is, and I don't have that many notes written today for this, because I just wanted to speak from the heart to you guys. And there's so much out there for you. If you're feeling you're stuck, if you're feeling that, man, I can't get out of the situation, or you grew up broke, you grew up with a poverty, that's not an excuse to not try. That's not an excuse to not pursue the goal to a better life. That's not an excuse nor a reason to give up. Please take this information for what you will, but I do hope that it's touched some of you to, start creating some action, creating some change for yourself, creating opportunities for yourself. That's another thing that these experiences have taught me. It's allowed me to create these opportunities for myself. And what I mean by that is, if I didn't get exposed to Boston, to the Prudential Building, I met people there, transient. We didn't become buddies, but just having conversations with them, getting to know a little bit of the story. Why did they come from? Because a lot of people visited that building. And I gained all that experience from just having conversations. Go to the beach, see people walking around, see what it's like, speak to them. The thing is, if you isolate yourself, you only have yourself to blame. So expand, widen out, like I said. That means instead of just looking here, paying attention to this for your whole life, you widen out and you allow, bigger conversations, you allow bigger experiences, you allow yourself to experience more than what you currently are. And all that is positive. That's all beneficial to building the man that you want to be. There's a way to continually improve yourself. I'm still doing it at 47. I'm still working on my fitness. I need it. I'm still working on being a better husband. I'm still working on being a good father. I'm still working on being a better family head spiritually and being a protector and provider for my family. I'm still working on me. And that hasn't stopped since, when it clicked that I had to do something for myself. And that was probably when I was 12, 13. And probably before that. I remember because my mother, she had such a hard life that she didn't finish school. I think they pulled her out when she was in 6th grade. I remember I had a homework assignment and it was math. I think it was 6th grade math, maybe somewhere around there. It was elementary school. And my mother couldn't help me. And she felt so ashamed. I feel like I'm getting emotional. But she felt so ashamed that she couldn't help me. And that's when it clicked. From that moment on, I made sure that I knew everything I had to know so I can be self-reliant and not ever make my mother feel that way again. Excuse me. She did her best with what she had, and I appreciate her for that. And now it's time for me to do my best with what I have. And since I have more than what she did, I get to give more. And that only happened because I was able to overcome the fear of leaving my environment. And I hope you all do too. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next week. Y'all take care.